It's going to be electric tonight, y'all. Okay. No pressure, Laurel and Tommy. I'm laughing because when I've asked these two to speak before, and they've graciously told me no. Or they said, let me check my calendar. Oh, nope, can't do it. But they both said yes this time. And I'm super excited because I feel like sometimes the fly on the wall has a lot to say. And so I'm kind of excited to hear these two gals speak tonight. So our first speaker is Lauryl McKnight McManus, and she's my daughter, my beautiful, beautiful daughter. She laughs at me because I add the McManus. She thinks that's weird. Anyway, but so anyway, she's my daughter. She's awesome. She is Joyland's worship pastor, and she has lots of wonderful things to share tonight. So I'm going to start my clock.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, yes, most of you know me. If you don't know me yet, I do worship. I do kids. Do a bunch of administrative stuff. What I don't do is talk. Sing, no problems. Sing in front of thousands. That won't bother me. Talking to you guys, whew, not my favorite thing. So Vicki asked me to do this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Everybody else has probably almost done it, so I'll do it. Then she won't ask me again for a long time because I'm pretty busy on Fridays. And then I got sick, and I was down for the count all last week from Easter until, well, I'm still recovering. But I'm just going to try my best, and hopefully it makes any kind of sense to you all. Okay, so I'm not a PowerPoint person. I'm not a walk around and chat person. It's not my forte. If I was singing, that'd be a different story. I could move all around, no problem. But so tonight, though, I want to talk about what does it mean to be transformed and then to begin to have the mind of Christ. Okay, so first I'm going to start off reading a few definitions, just because I'm going to be using these terms throughout my minutes. Transformation, which most of us know, but a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. To transform is to make a thorough or dramatic change in form, appearance, or character of. That's probably me, that one we're talking about. Renew is to resume, and then they put in parentheses, this is the Oxford Dictionary, an activity after an interruption. And mind, the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and to feel, the faculty of consciousness and thought. Okay? So that kind of is all the definition of everything that was in my title. Right there. So in the beginning of 2023, Vicki had talked to us about asking the Lord for a word for the year. How many of you do that? Just raise your hand if you do words for the year. Great. So you all know what that is. I knew what that was, but I never did it. Not really. It wasn't like not my thing. It just wasn't a thing I thought about. But in 2023, I decided to ask. And the Lord gave me the word transformation. And usually how I know that the Lord's giving me something is because I know it's not something I would ever in a million years think of my own. Okay? So I was like, okay, Lord. And I got that scripture, Romans 12:1-2, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Now that is verse 1, which I can camp on all day long. I could teach on that all day long because that's about worship, and that's what I usually teach on, but I'm not doing that. Then, though, it should go with number 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And so I decided in the course of transformation, I think sometimes we go, okay, I understand that word, and I think it might look like this over the course of the year. I don't know if you do that with your words, or you're just like, I have no freaking clue, right? Well, since I asked him and he gave me a word, I decided to embrace it. And I said, okay, transformation. Now, I was going through some surgeries and all this stuff, so that's kind of where my brain was going down this path. Like, Laura, you're going to be totally fine. You're going to be healed up. You're going to be able to walk. You're going to be able to start. Actually, you'll be able to do this. That was kind of what was in my brain. Boy, did he have a completely different idea of what that was going to look like. So instead, it was very different than what I imagined. Instead, what happened was, shoot, I did not want to cry, sorry. What happened was my husband of 20 years came to me and told me, and I don't know how many of you heard Sterling's talk. He was the first Snapchat with my aunt, where he talked about how much I'm an anti-touch person and all this kind of stuff. Well, so if you know that talk, this will make better sense. But he came and he sat down and talked to me and he said, I have to tell you, I've really been thinking and I am trying to figure out if I can stay married. Can I do another 20 years with a person who's anti-touch? My husband is a huge touch person. That's his top love language. I'm not talking about love language, this is just my life. So I'm going to use this one as the example. And I went, wow, because I thought we were in a good place, which was shocking in a way because for 20 years, I have been hearing him say he needs these things, and I have been trying to do these things. But I always fail. Always, for 20 years, I have failed. It's just, even the compromise. Well, like, okay, we'll compromise this way. And because I don't score high, I won't lie, I don't score high on the touch kind of thing. But in the course of that really triggered something in me. And the very next day I was like, okay, Lord, what do I do with all this? Because this is a lot of information. It's hurtful. It's painful. He wasn't saying he was going to leave me. He was just like, I'm having these thoughts and da-da-da-da-da. And, partly he was like, if I was going to leave, I wouldn't have told you about it. So clearly we're working this out, right? But I was going to the Lord and I was like, all right, Lord, is this part of that thing, the transformation thing, And it was. And so he brought to mind Danny Silk's book, Keep Your Love On. Now, I'd already read this book. I read it when it came out because I read everything of Danny's because I love Danny. And I understood the book. I could comprehend the book, but I did not have the wisdom and knowledge of what he was trying to say in that. And so, oddly enough, the very next day, I was like, oh, I got to go get this Keep Your Love On book. And I was like, I don't want to read it. I need to listen to it, Lord. I don't have time to sit and read a book. And it came up on Audible, and I got a free Audible book. And it was right there. Like, it literally showed up in my Audible. I didn't have to look for it. It was right there. When I opened Audible, it was like, Keep Your Love On, Danny Silk's book. And here you have a free credit, right? Okay, thanks, Jesus. So I devoured that book. It's only 4.5 hours, something like that. It's pretty small. But this time in listening to it, I really started to understand some things. I started to understand some things about the love languages and preferring one another and this kind of stuff that I just did not have that mind shift, okay? And so I was like, okay, Lord, what do I do with this? And so in that season where I was being transformed, okay, and I learned 4 things in this situation, because this was a pretty dramatic transformation for me, for us. 1, I learned that I needed to stop using hyperbole, which is a really weird thing. But the Lord was like, you're talking too much in hyperbole all the time. So it was things like, I never, I always, or really harsh statements like, I hate touch. I never want touch. Whatever, right? Like, I just said things in hyperbole, and he's like, you got to stop using hyperbole because it's not very accurate. Then I needed to dispel the lies that I had been speaking and telling to myself, because I really had begun to believe them all personally. And he was like, that's not true. And that was what the Lord was telling me. I was like, oh, that's not really true? Okay. So what is the truth? So I was going to the Lord and going, okay, well, then what is the truth? Because I've believed this about myself for many, many years. So what is the actual truth? The third thing I learned was that I needed to really learn what was needed and why. In this circumstance, it was for Sterling, my husband. Like, what did he need and why did he need it? And then it was also for me of like, okay, learning things like, Laura, you're lying to yourself. That's a pretty harsh reality, in a weird way. And then I learned that I had to continually, on a regular, pretty much daily basis to get through this, go to the Lord and just ask for the renewing of my mind. Because, it's not so easy when you've believed lies about yourself for 20 years and have talked about it and told, because how many in this room would say, yes, I knew that Lauryl was a not touch person? Raise your hand. Yeah, half of you are going to know this about me, right? Okay, because everybody knows about me. So I determined, well, okay, hang on. Let me just check my notes because I don't want to miss something. But my original go-to in circumstances like this would have been to withdraw, go into myself, separate myself, not be vulnerable, stay very independent, and keep a wall up. That's kind of my go-to. I'm pretty independent. In this one, the Lord was like, you can't do that. You have to stay open. You have to stay vulnerable. You have to do all that. And I was like, okay, Lord. And I chose to do that. I only was able to do that, though, literally by the renewing of my mind on a daily basis. Going, okay, Lord, I need you to remind me why I'm doing this. I need you to tell me the truth. But as soon as I started doing that, you guys, it was so incredibly fast, that transformation, that it was weird. Like it was weird for lots of people. Where am I at on time? Because I can't see that. I don't know. 10. Great. All right. So as soon as my eyes were open to those first 4 things I mentioned, I began to change instantly. I immediately said, okay, and I have not at all in a year and a half almost now said anything like I'm anti-touch. That's not come out of my mouth. I don't even say I don't like touch. Now, I will be honest, I may not like a certain type of hug or like I can't do my husband likes the scratches with the nails. You do that, I think bugs are crawling on me. So I just say, I don't like that. Please don't do that, right? Like I had to get very specific so I understood, Lauryl, you have been believing this lie that you don't want to be touched by anybody. That's not really true, And so you have to move through those lies. And so the Lord just kept revealing them. As soon as it would come out my mouth, I'd go, wait a minute, that's not true. That's not true. This is the true statement. This is the other true statement. I love touch. I just don't like that one specific because I feel like a bug's crawling on me. Right? Okay. And then we moved forward. And it was that fast. And as those kept coming up, there was no going back at that point. Like, you could probably talk to Sterling and he'd be like, yeah, Lauryl hasn't said anything like that in a year. Like, nothing like that. Nothing. And so, now, did I just all of a sudden, like on the love language test, spring up and now I score 12 on touch? No. But I went up in it. Okay? I went from a 1 to a 2. But you know what? The Lord still changed me because now I scratch my husband's back every day, probably for like an hour, whereas it used to give me the heebie-jeebies. It used to freak me out. It literally I had convinced myself that I just did not like it so much that it would give me that gag reflex, like to be that touchy-feely, okay? So in this, the idea, it was hard. It was hard work. It wasn't as hard since the Lord was doing it with me. But even for Sterling, he didn't really know how to take me because I changed like that. I mean, I literally 180'd in just a matter of a few weeks. And so for him and I, we were thinking, when's the other shoe going to drop? Because for 20 years, I kept trying. Yes, I hear you, honey. You need me to do this. Yes, okay. All right. But I did it begrudgingly. I did it. I just didn't, I don't know. I didn't have the mind of Christ in it. That's really what was going on. I did not have the mind of Christ in it, and I do now. Okay, so we switch, and for like 3 or 4 months, he's like, whoa, I don't even know how to take you. Like literally, like, I don't know how to take you because you are so completely different. So completely different. And I thought, wow, okay, the transformation. I mean, I didn't even sure I was like really transformed. If you want to know the truth, I was like, no, okay, Lord, this is sticking. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to go into all of our personal stuff of last year, but this has probably been the most difficult year of my life in my marriage for a variety of things. And many opportunities have arisen for me to withdraw, separate, put up a wall, be upset, not be vulnerable. And, and I kind of always expect that's still a little bit that's going to become my first reaction. And then in the end, it's not. That's what it means to be actually transformed. if that makes sense. And so it's okay if I think, am I doing that? And the Lord's like, no, you're not doing that. And I'm like, great, I'm not doing that. Okay, I feel good. I feel good. I'm not saying I'm not hurting sometimes or sad about something, but I'm not going there anymore. Because at least in that area, I have the mind of Christ. And the mind of Christ is very different than Laurel's mind was. Now, that does not mean I have the mind of Christ in every area. And it doesn't mean that now we're in 2024. I have a different word for 2024, but that doesn't mean that the transformation just stops in 2023, right? There are other things that are coming up in my life. And so after about, month 4 was when he, I think, started to believe that I really was not going backwards. I wasn't changing back. I really did change. And change isn't even the best word. Being transformed really is the best one. And at least in this area, that renewal of the mind was the key and is the key. And now I don't think that. Like, I don't have those same feelings of like, I don't like this conversation. That was painful. I'm just going to go cut myself off. No, and we've had some tough ones. So, I mean, I'm not adverse to sharing them, but they don't need to necessarily be shared all the time, right? But it's okay for me to come up and be like, I'm really upset. I'm very frustrated. I'm hurt, but I'm going to stay connected. I'm going to do this. And that is just so out of, well, any of you that know me, have known me for a while, know that's way out of my character. But it isn't anymore. It is my character. So that's the difference. See, so now, not just that I stop lying or stop telling myself that, I understand that that is my character. My character is a person who is open, who is vulnerable, who is loving, who has zero problems hugging and touching people and getting hugs, because that was a tough one for me, and all those things. That's the character of who I am, because I have the mind of Christ, and that's who Christ is, right? And so I have just a couple scriptures I want to share. Do I have time? Okay. So 1 Corinthians 2:16 says, "For who has understood the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ." I just like that verse, because I think we forget that we have the mind of Christ, and we try to do these things in our flesh. Even if the Lord's saying, hey, you need to change this behavior, I did it out of my flesh for 20 years trying to change, and I failed. A lot. A lot. Okay? Now, there are things in my life that still need to be transformed, and I still need the mind of Christ in some areas, and I was going to talk about those, but I just not too bad. Because they're kind of brutal. When you ask the Lord to reveal certain things about yourself, you're like, whew, okay. And I will talk about them. I just didn't know if I'd have enough time. But what I will say is that, he continues, because I said yes to the transformation, to continue to change me regularly in many, many areas. And like Philippians 2:13 says, "For it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure." So even though it's painful, and it's not an easy process being transformed, he makes it easier. I'm not going to tell you it's not painful. It can be painful. But he does make it easier, and he can do it pretty quickly usually. Now, that's one thing we're working on right now. I feel like it's kind of slow, but that's okay, because sometimes that's how it is, right? But one thing I wanted to point out, though, was just because I feel like talking about Evie's thing, where Evie said that she feels like God is a God of the present, not the past or the future. He is a God of the present. I don't look back over the last 20 years and still bring all that with me anymore. That's dead Laurel. Okay? Like the Taylor Swift song. I'm sorry, she's dead. That Laurel is dead. At least that portion of her character is gone. This is the new Laurel. This is how I function. This is how I work. I know, you got to throw all the things in. Because God's a God of the present. He's not worried about what I did in the past. He's like, woo, we got you there, baby. Let's keep going, right? And keep moving forward. And so just because I feel like sometimes we as people, when we are getting transformed, or we know that there's things that need to change in our lives that the Lord's brought to better, we have a tendency to go into the past and want to reflect on the past as to why we're in the situation we're in. I don't need to know why I learned some weird, strange behavior that I was an anti-touch person. I don't need to know that. I don't need to care. You know what I mean? To still have it fixed, because I'm not an anti-touch person. And so my encouragement to you guys is, if you're going through something, you don't necessarily have to rehash why it is the way it is or what it is. You just have to be willing to be like, okay, Lord, if this is what we're dealing with, and you say yes, you don't have to say yes. He can be like, let's deal with this. And you're like, not ready. And he's going to be like, okay. But if you are ready, then don't worry. Don't keep bringing up all the stuff from the past, because it doesn't serve you, and two, he's not worried about it. The whole point is he's trying to get you past that, right? So ever since Evie said that, it makes me think in a lot of situations, okay, Laurel, God's not worried about the past. He's worried about you right now, just right now. He's not even really worried about the future. I might be more worried about the future, but he is not. And I love that. And so, I feel like we believe that to move forward, a lot of times we must understand the past and why, but we don't actually have to. We can just recognize that happened and then move forward. So on that note, I'm going to leave you guys with the last kind of scripture. Oh, good, I'm close. Which is 2 Corinthians 3:18. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of God, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is Spirit. And I have found in this past year, truly, literally my hardest year emotionally, is that I have moved from glory to glory, at least in this area. And in that scripture, I just love the unveiled face. Unveiled pretty much means you can't hide. You can't separate, you can't protect, you're unveiled. You're exposed. So, thank you. Hope that made sense.
Okay, does anybody have a question?
I just have more of a comment.
Yeah.
Just really proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
And thank you for being so vulnerable and very, just really heartfelt and genuine about real life stuff that's not easy to do. No. So, way to go.
Thank you.
Just way to go.
Great.
Even, I just observed just even a greater confidence in you to even speak about stuff. No, seriously, Laurel. So I just attest to the transformation, and I'm going to test out the hug thing. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, really.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Let's put that in practice. All right. Anybody on Zoom? Ronnie, go ahead.
Maybe you said it, but I didn't pay enough attention to every word. How did you come to determine that the past didn't matter as much as you thought it might have? I like that. I'm just curious.
Well, partly it came from what Evie said that night we had community church. She said, I feel like God is a God of the present. He's not worried about your past. He's not worried about the future. He's just in the present with you. And I've been thinking about that. And I guess when I was in this, because Evie just said that recently, but when I was in this in 2023, that was a lie. It was part of those lies that I believed about myself. And I just had to immediately go, that's not true. And I just kind of got to a place where I was like, I don't have time to go process the whole back end of everything, because I think that's what I used to do for 20 years of my marriage. And it didn't, and in the end, I was like, whoa, I'm already transforming. And that didn't matter, I guess, is what was happening. And so as now I've gotten through some of that stuff, I'm realizing that that is kind of where that comes from, that past thing. Like the past, you do not have to rehash the past forever. The enemy, I think, would like to keep us in the past a lot of the time, because that keeps us from moving forward. And I'm not saying that there aren't traumatic things and things that happen in our lives that cause trauma and things like that. Sometimes you got to work through. But you know what? If God wants to work through it with you, you don't necessarily have to go through it all. You can literally just leave it in the past. Yeah. So, yeah, no problem.
I just had a funny thought.
Okay, great.
Does the butterfly look back and think it's a caterpillar? Just
yeah,
a thought.
probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No, it comes out, has a whole nother view.
Anybody else got a question? Comments?
So easy. Thank you. No? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Dawn has one.
Hi, Don. Hey.
The journey is amazing, isn't it? Yes.
And it's a journey. It really is. It's a journey. I'm still going through some things. Like I said, they're not so easy. And that's okay.
So we're good on this one?
Huh?
Sure, I'm seeing here.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, Ronnie.
No one else is asking.
Yeah.
What do you think changed in Sterling that brought him to the point where he could believe you? That you had changed?
Very interesting question.
Yeah.
What do I think changed in Sterling? Ooh.
Is your hubby?
Yeah, he is my husband. I think time, truthfully, time and me being incredibly consistent was kind of finally when he realized the shoe wasn't going to drop ever and that I was different. But like, it really was something where he was like, okay, you have to slow down. You're moving too fast for me. I feel like we were like here, and now you just actually want to hang out a lot and be together, and I don't know what to do with all that, like, you know, because I'm just, again, very independent person. So I think, like, he had to take some time to process, like, is this a real thing? Is this happening? I would suspect he was asking the Lord about it, but I can't guarantee that. I have no idea. But I think it was the fact that he could tell that my heart had changed, and the way I was speaking had changed, and that I literally was just so consistent in going out of my way to do the things that he needed to know that I loved him. And that just took time, months, you know? And now, though, I don't think he would ever tell you that I'm ever going back at this point, but I would have said maybe late fall, he might have still thought I might be doing that, you know? So, but not now. But I think mostly, yeah, Ronnie, it was probably just time and me being consistent.
Sensitive question.
Oh, no, that's not sensitive. I thought I was going to get a lot worse. So it's all good. I mean, I'm willing to discuss anything. I really don't mind. I just, yeah.
So
It's
you
always a little
mentioned you mentioned a lot of interaction between you and the Lord through this process.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously getting down and pretty clear sounding communication and stuff. So how would you describe in one or two words or a paragraph his role in it?
The Lord's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Dang. Shoot. Okay. Well, his role was very much parent, probably, in a lot of ways, I would say, like guiding parent. Like, is that really what you want to say? Or is that what you really want to do? You know, that kind of like you guide, you want your kids to make their own decisions. That's the whole point, right? But it would be like, is that the thought that you need to have? Yes, I understand that you're hurting at the moment, or I understand that the situation's getting painful. Are you sure you want to withdraw? Because you've done that 100 times, and I'm with you. So it was really like this constant thing in my mind of him just being real sweet, like, hey, you got I'm going to give you a free Audible credit, because I didn't even have Audible at the time, so how I got a free one, I don't know. But, you know, free Audible credit, and then there's the book. You know, it's stuff like that, where he just was like, no, I'm going to prove to you that I'm with you in this every single step of the way. So then I could go and journal out, and I'm not a journaler unless I just have too many thoughts to get out. I'm not a journaler like Larry. Like, he's great, daily, not me. I'm only if I just need to remember and process something later. But I would write it all out, and I would look back, and I'd be like, this is all the things that were said. What does this mean? And then I would just put it away, and then he'd come back and he'd be like, you're overanalyzing, you're overthinking, you're overdoing. Or it doesn't even matter. That was the big one. It doesn't matter what he's doing. Sterling, being he. Doesn't matter what he's doing. This isn't about him. It's about you. And that was the other thing I had to remember. This is about you and who you are and who I've made you to be. And we're going to keep moving you in that direction if you'll stay with me. And so it really was actually kind of a daily thing of like, okay, Lord, wake up, wrote in my gratitude journal, wake up, write, and go, okay, Lord, give me the grace to do this. And tell me when I'm overstepping. Tell me when I'm lying to myself. Tell me, I was just saying yes to everything. And so that's what he kind of did was, yeah, you don't. And again, even though that was that one instance, we have had interesting instances throughout this past year and even earlier this year where I would normally revert back. And the Lord's like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. It's really okay. Even if you're sad, hurting, angry, it's okay. We'll get through that together. So it literally was kind of a daily thing for me for a while. And then it just became kind of my character, I guess. And then it wasn't so freaking hard, because then I just wasn't saying the lies. I wasn't saying anything, and then the Lord was like, yeah, you're just doing great. You're doing great in this area. How about we deal with this area? And I went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Right? That's the problem though. So, we've been sitting on that one since August because it's a tough one for me right now in the situations that Sterling and I are in. So.
Is that all from everybody? Let me check the Zoomers. Sorry, I guess I can look there, but.
That answer your question, Dad? Okay, great. Okay.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
give it up for Laurel
All
again.
right, yay.